Hello, everybody. So, good news is that, again, for those at all interested, I'm 14 days sober, and all seems to be okay on that front. But there was like other things I wanted to discuss that, to be honest, I feel like at some point I'll have to address somewhere down the road. And you know what? Now might be a good as time as any. Right. So, um, earlier today when I went down to the day centre in Morpeth, it was one of those you just had to schedule appointments and basically blah blah. I explained, and I explained this in a video I did last week, that the Royal Mail, when I was applying for seasonal work to do alongside my course with NVQ, um, I was it was a job that I had done 6 years before. Never had any issues with the work, never had any issues with the gaffer or anything like that. Everything went smooth. I was also asking for overtime and stuff like that, which I did like once, I think, on a Saturday, just because it was what they had available. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I filled out everything, and I get told about 2 weeks ago that I was unsuccessful with my application. Now, here is really where I think, like, for the first time, I'm gonna go through all the disasters I've had this year with employees and stuff like that, in about 2 weeks' time, with a few other people down the day centre. But what I'm trying to get at is that 6 years ago, I'd never worked for the Royal Mail before, and they had me on. You know what I mean? They asked us, sign up, and we could get you started on such and such a date. So here we are, 6 years down the line, and when I fill out again for this type of work, they told us I was unsuccessful. And it was genuinely, for the very first time this year, I wanted to write back, to be honest, and say, I would actually, to be honest, appreciate if I was told explicitly why not. Because it wasn't as if I didn't have experience on the job. It's not exactly as if I couldn't do things whilst, we're working on the job. It's not exactly as if I was medically unfit. You know what? If anything, I've bulked up considerably in the last number of years. So I didn't understand exactly why they told me no. Now, I had my suspicions a little bit as to why they said no. And to be honest, I don't really know if any of these are founded, fair, or even true. Part of me feels as if like the only way to make any sense out of this is to come up with an explanation that might not appear fair or even legal, but something that is at least semi-logical. It's the sort of hoops that your mind has to jump through if you want to make any of this make any sort of sense whatsoever. Yeah, you can see what sort of position that leaves, someone like me. It just makes me more and more upset to think about it. And so, and a lot of people down the day centre said that they can feel the frustration, they can feel the anger, the rage, the indignity of it all. So basically, I said I want to file out a very large scale report, in my opinion, about all the disasters I've had this year from employers, and also a lot of things that, quite frankly, are appalling in the extreme when it comes. Because, in my personal opinion, if you do not want people to work for you and do the job, do not advertise for work. It's as simple as that. If you didn't want people to work for you, then don't advertise it. I said that twice because I don't know how more blunt I have to make it. So I decided not to write back to the Royal Mail because, quite frankly, if they don't want me, then there is nothing out there that's going to start telling me, you know what, if I write to them and tell them and demand an explanation, I don't think they're going to come around to anything like that. What's the sense in wanting somebody who they categorically don't want? It's not hardly like I've been blacklisted or anything like that. You know what? My record is absolutely squeaky clean. You know, I've had no criminal convictions, you know, past, pending, or future. You know what I mean? I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to do. Which was also the other thing I wanted to actually write to them and say, what exactly do you want from me? Do you want me to, you know, I don't know, pay you guys for me to work for you? Is that what it has to come to? It's a dignity thing, honestly, with me. And quite frankly, you know what? I am not, because I've had problems with, you know, their recruiting staff, Angard and stuff like that, because they also wrote back. I don't have time to go over the stories. I'll go over it because some of it is a bit confidential and stuff like that. Let alone the issues I've had with attitude and stuff like that with some people. But I'll square that with the Abbey. You know what I mean? So anyway, I leave the day center, the security, because one thing I will say is that I've always gotten on very, very well with security. Just because, you know what, you be fair, you be reasonable. It is how it is. If they say you are going, then guess what, you are going. There's only ever happened to me once where, you know, once the doorman asked us that it was time to go and stuff like that. I did not argue. Well, I was going to argue, but to be honest, we all know how that ends. Have you ever heard of a story of anybody getting into an argument with a doorman and, you know, it ever ends well? It only ever ends one way. So there's that, I suppose. Anyway, like, how was having like, and this was like 4 years ago, and when is like having free, you know, Copperbergs ever considered, you know, that's it, cleaning out time? Anyway, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. It was a rough time 4 years ago, let me tell you that. It was also in the run-up to Christmas, ironically. So, we go through all this, and the security told us to keep me head up high. He knows that it's not fair, but you know what? You'll get someone who respects you for you and actually treats you fair, and you know what, respects your graft and respects who you are as a person. Certainly true. So anyway, by the time I get back to my car, I was sort of overwhelmed with a series of emotions. I was angry, I was upset, I was pissed off, I was miserable, and I just wanted to drink. I just wanted something to subsidize the pain and stuff like that. I had no interest in going to the gym or anything like that. It was already a pretty long drive to get there, and it was just as much as a long drive back. So here is straight up the part where I do also need to share something that, to be honest, you know how I was going on about my sobriety and stuff like that, how I explained how it was just a matter of improving my lifestyle because I wasn't actually addicted to it or anything like that. Well, there might also be a little bit of a facet of my personality that I think is a little bit more serious to address. I actually do believe I have a very particular underlying issue with anger. You know, when have you ever had days, guys, where you know what, everything goes wrong and you just don't want to wake up? Everything is fucked. Everybody sucks. Yeah, that's that's just how it was. And there is no surefire way of getting me any more angrier than dealing with people who can't drive. People who can't indicate. People who pause for no reason to let other people out when they obviously have no idea where they're going or what they're doing. People who interpret me as letting them out when that's not true at all, when they try and cut across in these... Oh God, I can't explain it. It is the fucking... And more often than not, it's BMW drivers. I'm not having a go. Okay, that's a lie. I am having a go. Because to be honest, every single encounter I've had with a bad driver has always driven a BMW. These people drive like they own the fucking shop. You know what I mean? They don't indicate. I'll be coming up to a roundabout, maximum 40 miles an hour after just coming off another roundabout. Some dickhead flies out at doing 55 just to cut in front ahead of me and stuff like that. Because these dickheads think they can do it. Because they are the most malicious drivers on the road. And you know what? They drive like that because guess what? They couldn't care less. Because as long as they get away with what they're doing, that is literally all that matters. One of these days, I feel, again, it's, you know what? One of these days, one of those lot is going to kill somebody because of what they did. And I will literally be saying, well, I could have told them that because they're not, but they wouldn't listen to me because they're not particularly bothered about people's safety, theirs or even their own. So, yeah, loads of that to encounter on the roads. And to be honest, in my state of mind, it's a good thing, you know what? I also do think I have this thing of controlled aggression where you can pile the pressure on me and you can make me simmer and steam and boil in my fury, but I won't ever lash out or attack. I believe that, violence is the last bastion of moral cowardice. However, anger and stuff like that is it's a slightly different kettle. So anyway, I had time when I was driving home to think everything in my mind, to try and stay relaxed, to just try and focus and just take into account that, you know what, things somehow, in some way, have to get better. But nothing is ever going to come of this if I start letting myself down and thinking that everything was just going to be okay again if I just chose to ignore it or completely decided to fog out my mind with alcohol. This revelation, if you will, actually stuck in my mind because of what happened immediately afterwards. So when I was coming up to, I think it's some sort of cottage estate or something like that that's owned by Northumberland College, just before Kirkley Hall. I was held up in traffic for about 5 minutes because it was the scene of quite a violent accident. The car in total was completely totaled. There was fire engines around. Police were everywhere. It was an absolute mess. And the reason why there were so many police, because there's a police station very inside Kirkley Hall, so it's not very far away. So by the time we drove past it, and of course you drive as slow and you creep almost, especially at the side of an accident when there's that much police around. The front end. Usually you're meant to be coming around these country roads at 30 miles an hour. By the state of the car, I'm guessing he was doing minimum 65, possibly. At that speed, it's a good. I think, and if the guy who was driving it was not killed, I think he should consider himself extremely lucky, given the circumstances. So, yeah, seeing that for some strange reason actually gave me a little bit of hope. I know that's a very, very bizarre thing to say in such circumstances, but consider this. If I had been if the person who drove that car might have been drunk, that's exactly the sort of thing that can happen. If I had been drinking, that's the sort of thing that can happen. You know what? I could end up getting myself killed. I could end up getting somebody else killed. And you know what? Yeah, exactly. That's the sort of thing that happens when people can't control their aggression and they think they can just do whatever they like and they can fly off the handle and do anything they want. You know, they do say the Lord works in mysterious ways. And even though the example I've just given is unorthodox at best and unnecessarily violent at worst, it has, however, given me something else to consider. What's tomorrow night? Saturday. I'm going to do something tomorrow night that I literally have not done since the very beginning of this year. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to pray. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be praying for, but maybe in some way just having some, because and it seems fair in some ways because it's the first Sunday of Advent tomorrow, and you know what? maybe I should. Maybe I should make the effort in doing it. I don't know for certain exactly what I'm expecting, but you know what? There's no harm in trying. I can't lose anything, and I can't have any more of my dignity splintered like everything else. But you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna make the. I mean, I know. You don't need to tell me. I've been making the effort. Oh yeah, I'm perfectly aware of that. However, we're talking about making the effort in slightly unorthodox ways as well. Some way, somehow, there's got to be some. I've got to do something. Not just to calm my nerves and to just stop being so angry inside, but to find some level of peace. That's a good start, to find some level of peace. And I think, to be honest, that's really where it ends, because, well, here we are. So, as bad as I know things have been, and you don't need to tell me twice, what I do know is that this is the only way this is ever going to get better is through my actions and through what I do. My actions are not going to get better if I go completely off the rails and start doing what I want just because I can. We're not going to get anywhere doing that. And with all that being said, hopefully that's been some level of enlightenment somehow, some way. And with that being said, I'll see all of you guys again next time. Thank you.